We're speaking common sense. We said all along the war in Iraq made no sense. We said all along that we shouldn't be involving ourselves in this Arab Spring. Libya. Well, look at Libya now. We were opposed to it from the start. The government of Libya have to meet on a boat. Benghazi, where the Arab Spring begun, is now overrun by Islamic fundamentalists. Syria, you remove Assad. That's what we wanted to do. But we wanted to arm these so-called rebels, who now turn out to be Al-Nusra Front and ISIS. Wouldn't it have been genius if Cameron and Haig got their way and we started giving these people weapons? I guarantee you, in 5 years' time, those weapons will end up in the hands of ISIS, just as they did with the Mujahideen back in the 1980s, and they will use our weapons against us. We were right. We don't want to see cuts to the defence budget. We say the world is a pretty dangerous place at the moment, but then they say, oh well, UKIP, you don't want to see cuts to this, you don't want to see cuts to that, you want to increase spending on this, how will you pay for it? Well, we just say simply, I'll tell you where we'd start. At the moment, we hand £25 million every single day away in foreign aid. Now, I don't have a pleasing heart, okay? And equally, I don't have a heart of stone. And I believe we should give foreign aid to countries like Sierra Leone, where there is an Ebola crisis, or places where there are starving children in Africa, only as long as we know where that foreign aid actually goes. It doesn't go to dictators, it doesn't help by Mercedes-Benz and Ray-Bans, it actually gets through to the people who actually need it. However, we shouldn't be giving foreign aid to Brazil, which has just overtaken us in the League of Economic Powers. We shouldn't be giving foreign aid to Argentina, which saber rattles over the Falklands. We shouldn't be giving foreign aid to China. We shouldn't be giving foreign aid to India, with its own space program, with its own nuclear weapons, with its own aircraft carriers. Wouldn't it be nice to have aircraft carriers? You know, the fact is that is our taxation, and it should be spent in our country, on our own people, on our schools, on our hospitals, and ensuring that our boys and girls in the armed forces have the best equipment available. On health, it's common sense. Of course, the Labour Party always, oh, UKIP, you want to privatise the NHS. Indeed, Mr Cameron lied to Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday, when Mark Reckless got up and asked a question about the NHS and talked about protecting the NHS, and Mr Cameron said, oh well, I find it very strange that you've joined a party that wants to break up the NHS. We don't want to break up the NHS. In fact, if you listened to our spokesperson on health, Louise Bowles, give her speech at conference, we made it perfectly clear that we want the health service to remain in public hands and free at the point of delivery. But equally at the same time, we need to see a streamlined NHS. It cannot be right, ladies and gentlemen, that the NHS is the third largest employer in the world. It cannot be right that 1 in 16 people who work in this country work for the NHS. When Labour came to power in '97, the NHS budget was £33 billion a year. When they left, it was 99. Where did the money go? Well, it exploded in terms of staff. But was it nurses? Was it doctors? It was managers, it was pen pushers, it was bureaucrats. Indeed, last year alone, if you looked at the bonuses and the pay increases that the managers and the middle managers got on the NHS, it amounted to around 25%, yet nurses and midwives got a 1% pay rise. It cannot be right. We need to be like a hot knife. Spend our money, but that money should go on the front line, on doctors and nurses, and let's get the NHS back to what it should be about. Not pen pushing, not paper, not pushing paper around tables with paper clips and making the jobs of the nurses and doctors hard through form filling. Let's get it back to looking after the British people and making sure that this country is healthy. Crime, again, one of the biggest issues for people. People do not feel safe going out of an evening, whether you're young or whether you're elderly. And UKIP has the right policies on crime. We're firm on crime. We believe in tackling low-level crime. Catch it at its source. Make sentences mean what they say. If you get sent down for 6 years, then you should serve 6 years, not be out in 3. And life, for murder, life should mean life. To do this, we must do away with something which was enshrined into British law in the late 90s by the Labour Party, and people made a massive amount of money out of it. They're called human rights lawyers. And indeed, who was the top human rights lawyer in the late 1990s? Yes, you worked that one out. The fact is, the Human Rights Act has acted as little more than a criminal's charter. It needs to be ripped up, and we need a British bill back here. I'm very proud, ladies and gentlemen, to be the deputy leader of this party. I'm very proud that we now have 2 MPs. I'm very proud that we have 3 members of the House of Lords. I'm very proud that if you look at all levels of council, parish, town, district and to the top county, we have around 1,000 elected councillors in this country. And most of all, because I know these guys personally, I'm proud of our MEPs, because these are the bulwark in Brussels against much of this nonsense legislation. These are the guys who are fighting to stop the £55 million every single day that this country hands over to the European Union. We're trying to make sure that that is stopped. Because it's like foreign aid, isn't it? It's your taxation, and it shouldn't be spent on motorways in Romania. It shouldn't be spent on an underground in Warsaw. It shouldn't be spent on a sewage system in Budapest. It should be spent in this country on our own people. But do not kid ourselves. The MEPs do not have the power in Brussels. The power in Brussels lies about a mile up the road from the European Parliament in a building called the Parliament Building. And in that building, 28 European commissioners meet in secret, headed by a man, Jean-Claude Juncker, who stood on a platform to be President of the European Commission on stamping out aggressive tax avoidance in Europe. Yet it turns out that Luxembourg was a magical fairyland for multinational and corporate companies who were paying as little as 1% on profit. This man is a hypocrite. He should resign. He should go, along with the rest of the 28 commissioners to boot. But these characters, these faceless bureaucrats, now make up 70% of the laws of this country. They meet in secret with 3,000 working groups that advise them on what legislation to pass. But they don't tell us who sit on these 3,000 working groups. But they don't have to tell us. We know who it is. It's the multinationals. It's the corporates. It's the tobacco industry. It's the pharmaceutical industry. This is how law is made in Brussels, behind closed doors. And is it any wonder that Brussels has more lobbyists than Washington? Because it's a lobbyist's dream. And I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, did we fight 2 wars in the last century for 70% of our laws now to be made in a foreign country in secret? I say shame on those people who gave our sovereignty away, and we have you. I'm going to finish tonight's speech by saying we are now moving forward into the biggest year in our history. We are part, and I've said, Jim said it earlier today, I've said it before, we are part of the most exciting political movement that this country has seen, I think, since the birth of the Labour Party under Keir Hardie. We are the outsiders. We are the anti-establishment. We are the ones who've got them terrified in London because they cannot work out how to deal with us. They can't. And the reason they can't understand it is because they have become detached from normal working people. And if you get this right, ladies and gentlemen, I guarantee you, if you work hard, if you leaflet, and you must start early, if you write letters, talk to your friends, get behind Michael, you just won't have an MEP's office in Kidderminster, you'll have an MP's as well this time next year.